Hello, my name is Heidi Kuhn, and it's an honor to be here today with you to interview Grace Hughes, who is the 2002 recipient of the Marin County Women's Hall of Fame in the area of business. Grace, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Heidi. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you, thank you. Grace, tell me, you received this wonderful award this year. Tell me, how did it feel to be there and to be the recipient of this distinguished award honoring women in Marin County?
It's absolutely overwhelming experience. First of all, to be recognized in your own community is quite an honor. But the most overwhelming part of it was to be in the presence of other women who are being recognized for such outstanding contributions to their community and to the world. So I'll tell you, it was pretty breathtaking. I was very excited, very honored, and very pleased to be representing a section of our community that frankly doesn't get much recognition in this kind of setting. So it was overwhelming, pleasing, and delightful.
Grace, you've been an incredible Renaissance woman with a tapestry of so many things in your background, beginning from New York City and from coast to coast in your contribution for women's issues. Tell me, first of all, where were you born?
I was born just across the Golden Gate Bridge. In fact, I was born the year the Golden Gate Bridge was built in San Francisco, and grew up there until I was 12, and then we moved to Marin County.
Great, great. And when was that? You were 12 years old, so that was a very impressionable time. And
absolutely, very exciting time.
Yes. Why was it so exciting?
Well, we moved to Sausalito. Mm-hmm. And I had, as I said, spent my first 12 years in San Francisco, rather pedestrian kind of 12 years. We moved to Sausalito, and my father ran a taxi cab stand. And I was plunked down in the middle of what was then called an artist colony. And I had the most amazing childhood. I learned all sorts of things about the world, but mostly it had to do with the diversity of people that were in that city at that time. It wasn't so much of a tourist place as it is now, but it was an art colony, and the people that came there were representative of all over the world, different styles of art, sailing people, just a potpourri of people that I had never been exposed to before.
Mm-hmm. So, Grace, your roots of Marin County are in transportation. I mean, through your father.
Oh, yes.
What impact did he have on your life? Tell me, in terms of the transportation and certainly the taxi industry, transporting people of all sorts.
He started Marin Airporter.
Oh, he did?
And so, of course, he had an impact on my life. During my childhood, or my late childhood, or I guess adolescence, I worked for him in the taxi industry, and I learned what it was like to give public service. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would say that he gave me a big push toward what it means to do public service.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as a young woman, who were your mentors during that period of time? I mean, certainly your father was a wonderful influence. What about your mother, grandmothers, neighbors, friends?
Well, I had no other relatives. My grandparents on both sides were deceased. My mother had, her relatives were all in the East, and so I really didn't have a large extended family. My mentors in my youth really were my friends and my friends' families. I was extraordinarily lucky to have a group of people that surrounded me, that again represented a huge diversity in this world.
But Grace, was there one mentor in particular that had a great influence on your life and who you are today?
Well, I do believe that it took a while for this mentor to come along, and I'm sure there were many people within, as I mentioned before, within my early life that had influences on me that are hard to pull out. But my ex-husband, who has since deceased, and the father of my children, was probably the most significant person in my life, because he really awakened any social conscience that I have today. He was very intelligent, but most of all, he was very socially conscious. And so I would say that for where I am today, both in business and as a social activist and a person who is concerned about humankind, that was my mentor. So I remember him fondly for that.
That's a wonderful, wonderful memory. Grace, so after 12-year-old girl, obviously you went to high school, on to your higher education. Tell me about your high school years and where did you go? Was it here locally in Marin?
Yes, I was a Tamalpais Union High School graduate. My children also went there later on, but I went there and graduated in 1955. It was a wonderful experience. It's one of those things that you look back on and say, you know, I wish I could have just capsulized it all there. I had a great high school experience and great friends, and again, lots of activity in the community. So, and then I went to College of Marin directly from TAM and spent 2 years there, and then took a break in my educational experience to get married, to have children, and see them grow up, not completely grown, but on their way. And then I went back to school to get my degree in political science at San Francisco State.
So once you achieved this education, what did you decide, where did you decide to place your time, talent, and treasure?
Well, I was looking for something that would take advantage of both my activist attitudes and my community involvement, as well as my now what I considered my political expertise, at least theoretically. And I went to work for the Coro Foundation. And the Coro Foundation is a training program, postgraduate training program for students of public affairs. And it was a wonderful match. I directed the women's program, which was at that time had been put together for women who had been mostly volunteers in the community, who wanted to professionalize themselves so that they could go on to working as wage earners, really professional people in the field of public affairs. And it ran the gamut from nonprofits to politics to media to corporate. And so they took internships in all of those programs during their training, and many of them have gone on to higher callings. One of my favorite students is Anna Eshoo, who now is the congresswoman from the peninsula. Right. And we always get a kick about talking about that I was her trainer. She's gone far beyond me at this point.
What a wonderful mentor you were.
But that was great fun. It was a wonderful, and still is a wonderful organization.
Now, this wasn't in Marin County. This was
no, it's in San Francisco.
It's in San Francisco proper.
But it drew women from all over the area. In fact, Judy Edgar, who is very well known in Marin County because of her involvement with education, and she was on the college board, was also one of the first people that started the Coro program for women when she was with the Junior League. So there's a real Marin County connection with it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And after that experience and that wonderful foundation of applying your background and teaching others, where was your path? Where did it take you next?
Well, the circuitous path went on to New York, where I opened the Coro office there and also started the women's program in New York City.
And now when was this?
And that was in 1980.
1980. So
and
you packed up and went to bi-coastal.
Right. My kids by that time were both in college, and it was a perfect opportunity for me to spread my wings. And I'd always had sort of a fantasy about New York and how wonderful it was, and there I went. So I spent 4 years there, although I didn't stay with the Coro Foundation for the whole time. I moved on to the Democratic National Committee and worked for them as a program officer for training and development in the Northeast. So that was fun.
Fabulous.
that was a real history lesson in itself.
Did that particular chapter of your life have an influence on you as a business leader in the Marin community? What experiences did you take from New York City?
I wouldn't say that New York gave me any great insights in how to become a business person or even be a public servant. It had a charm, it had an excitement, it had a uniqueness all its own. I had experiences that I will treasure for all my life. I met people that was like reading a history book, but they were more human kinds of stories for me about understanding that most people are the same wherever you go. And the reputation of the fast-paced, hard-hearted New Yorker is an illusion to many. You know, it's hard living in New York. You get 8 million people all stuffed in a very small space. You've got hard living. But as opposed to Marin County with, you know, 1 person per 4 acres. But I think that that was probably what I brought away from it, that the experience was rich and deep, but that those experiences that I've had in Marin County on the human level are probably as rich and as deep, just in a different setting.
So this chapter in New York, you obviously had an ending. What brought you back to Marin County, and what was your...
Well, actually, the reason I left New York was the 1984 election. My job was pretty much done as far as the Democratic Party was concerned once we came to San Francisco for the convention. In the interim, my father had died, and my brother and I inherited Marin Airport. So during the time that I was in New York, I was flying back and forth, trying to close up his estate and also to participate on the board of Marin Airport. And at the 1984 juncture, I had to make a decision as to whether or not I was going to stay in New York to try and find my fame and fortune, or I was going to come back and take on a challenge that had grown more and more interesting to me, where Marin Airport I saw as a real blend and a real opportunity to do public service as well as run a business and do something that I had really never done before. So that's what happened. 1984, July, I came back to Marin and took over the reins at Marin Airport.
I'm going to turn it over to you to elaborate on that beautiful tale, because it's ultimately evolved into you being the 2002 recipient of the Marin Women's Hall of Fame for your leadership and your mentoring of your staff and all those around you in the transportation industry.
Well, I think it was an interesting time, and I as I said in my acceptance speech at the Hall of Fame dinner, I was so pleased to see business be recognized as an integral part of the community. My company is only one of so many companies in Marin who involve themselves in a way that enriches and improves and supports who we are and what we do in this community. It's not just a matter of providing a service or a product. It really has to do with the integration of business with the community. And for me, that has been the most satisfying part of my business career. I had never done anything in the supposedly for-profit community before, but I found that there were so many lessons that I had learned in my nonprofit experience that I transferred over to the business aspect of my life, and I think it does improve and enhance how you are perceived in the community and what kind of support you get from the community. So it's been a really interesting it will be 18 years on the 24th of this month.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
was it the humanitarian high road that your nonprofit background drove you in your leadership on the Marin Airport?
I mean, it was a practical aspect of becoming the president of the company. There was a void, a leadership void at the time, and I stepped in and took it on. It was a little scary. I didn't know anything about buses, but I did know things about people, I thought, and how to manage, and so that put me in pretty good stead. It's not that it wasn't difficult, and it's not that I didn't stub my toe more than once in an industry where I had no expertise. And I had to rely on a number of people to help me along, to make me understand everything from Jake brakes to how you evaluate a safety record. And I think that I don't think, I know that without those kinds of support that I had along the way, I probably wouldn't have had the time or the energy to produce a company that was so well integrated into the community.
Grace, we have recently experienced a serious national disaster of September 11th. That has obviously affected the transportation industry across the board. How are you handling that as a CEO? What are your challenges effectively?
Well, that's a tall order to try and analyze each and every part of it. But I would say that September 11th was a devastation for the whole world, not just, the United States. And of course it had a huge effect on the transportation industry. But I think we have to go back a little bit before that and look at where the transportation industry has been over the last decade, and the real challenges that lie within the industry. The economy started going south much earlier than September. In fact, a year before that, it started going south. And it affected the ability to be able to provide the highest and best kind of service that we have been used to giving. And by that I mean we kept our equipment in good shape, and we provided the same service schedules, but we had to start looking at ways that we could achieve that and at the same time be able to pay our bills. And the business has gone down considerably since 2000. So here we are in 2002. We have a transportation crisis. We have an airport that is in great financial distress. And we have a very diminished traveling public. And it's a combination of September 11th and the fact that people are losing their jobs and that they do not use travel as their first choice of using up their discretionary income. So Marin airporters had to deal with that. And as a CEO, I thank my lucky stars that I had 17 years of experience to be able to be sensitive to those areas that can be condensed, and they're painful. They're very painful. I had to let people go that had been with me for a long time. They weren't drivers, they were auxiliary kinds of support. Diminishes the service, but it gives us the opportunity to keep the core of our business going. One of the biggest sadnesses for me, I mean really the biggest sadness for me, after having to let people go, which was the worst I've ever experienced, but more to that is that we have been involved with the community as a funder, as a support system financially since the day that I arrived. And when I had to tell the first person that called to ask for help that I couldn't do it, it really took a lot out of me. Yeah. And I have seen over the last year that I've had to do that more and more. And to me, that collaboration that I had with the community for so long had been rented, and I'm not over it yet. As you can see, it is a really strong effect, and I hope that we will find other ways, and we have been trying to find other ways to be able to participate in the community, both with my time and with equipment and volunteering from our employees, that we still are being able to support the soul of our community. And I think it's so important that, as I said earlier, that business be connected to that soul, because without one another's support, it becomes a very hollow enterprise.
Grace, tell me about some of the other things that projects you're involved in the community. For instance, the Marin Community Foundation.
It was an awesome responsibility to sit as a member of the Board of Trustees. I really began to understand what the word trustee means. And I think I just took it for granted before. It was somebody who sits on a board. And I may have even interchanged it with being on a board of directors. But being a trustee is, in fact, that you are endowed with a trust. And I know that it has to do with the legal term of a trust, but it also has to do with the trust that is embedded in you, and the trust that is given to you to do the best you can with the charge that is given. And in this case, it is distributing an enormous amount of wealth to the community, and doing it with a sense of responsibility, a sense of involvement, and a sense of dignity. And so for 7 years, I sat with a number of other colleagues. Some went and came and went as their terms left. The directors, the presidents of the foundation changed while I was there. And the sense that I have is that this foundation, as it still exists, can play a monumental role in the development of the humanity of this community. And I hope that as the foundation goes along its way, that it will in fact be able to say that yes, in fact, that it has been their charge, their motivation, and their success.
Grace, what are some of your passions? What are your projects? What makes you happy? What are your outlets?
What makes me happy? So what makes my blood pressure go up?
No, that's business.
What makes me happy? Well, my grandchildren make me happy.
And how many grandchildren do you
I
have?
have 3 grandchildren. I have a daughter and a son, and they both provided me with wonderful grandchildren. My daughter adopted a baby from China over 7 years ago, and it was the most delightful, wonderful, awesome experience of my life, because she was my first grandchild. And I never thought that I was a grandmotherly type. But the moment I saw her, I became a grandmotherly type. And it's been a wonderful experience. And my son and daughter-in-law have given me the joy of 2 granddaughters who are now 4 and 8 months. And it makes me cavell. It's so lovely to have these children in my life.
What would you tell your granddaughters? What bit of wisdom would you impart to them?
Wisdom. I think that's a difficult word to throw around, because I'm not sure how wise, but any of it might be. But if I were talking to my girls, I would encourage them to not be hard on themselves, to enjoy themselves, to have fun with what they do, and not to let people impose their conditions and their expectations on them, but to feel confident in their lives. I see many times people being intimidated by what others think that they should do and not always have the courage or the support to do what they think is right. So that's what I might tell them. I might tell them to eat their vegetables. But I think I would tell them as much as I could that I love them and that they are loved. So I don't know if that's words of wisdom, because I think it's very difficult to superimpose on someone something that maybe you have learned that you interpret as the right way to go, and not give people a chance, or young ones a chance, to be able to find their own way and stumble and fall from time to time, but to know that they're loved and that they're supported and that they'll find their way.